The truth. On Friday, May 5th, 2023, my cat kept running to the neighbor's house, Mrs. Young, who lives directly behind me. I went after him and he was really adamant about staying or being there. I noticed all the statues of animals placed strategically throughout the yard and thought it was pretty cool. I started taking some videos and whatever of that. The next door neighbor, who I found out goes by the name of George, was outside moving some landscaping around. So I introduced myself and asked about the neighbor, Mrs. Young, and if he knew anything about her. He told me she was really sick with cancer, and I asked him if she was the same Mrs. Young that lived at 54 Kings Road, which was where I grew up, and if she was a school teacher at Chartiers. He said she was. I later on in the day found out that this was in fact not true when I spoke to Mrs. Young. At any rate, I talked to George and then his wife at some length about a ton of different things. The most important being that if they see me out in the yard running around, waving my hands or acting weird, there is no reason to worry. The month of May is hard for me, and know that I'm of no harm to anyone, and if I'm making them uncomfortable at any point, to just tell me to go home because I listen. The woman says, no worries, you're welcome in our yard at any time, and we would never call the cops. Their granddaughter comes down and they tell me she's not all there, which was a bit offensive because she is actually highly gifted. She is labeled as autistic. So we all talk a bit more, then I go home with my cat. On Saturday, May 6th, my other cat ran away around 9 a.m. And when I was trying to get him, I suddenly had the urge to go and tell my husband that the police were coming to our house and that he was just to let whatever happened. So I went to the RV where he was resting, and I told him, please, no violence. I know we'd agreed that you would protect me if anything like last year had happened again, but we can only react in love and just let them do what they are going to do. Okay. He said okay and laid back down, and I went into the house to gather more things so we could get out of the area. I was in the process of getting the essentials in the RV since the previous night. At this point, I'm about 25 hours with no sleep. I had reached out to my old PCP about a week before to see if I could get the Visceral refilled, as that was the one prescription that helped me sleep last year. I only had four pills left and just wanted to make sure that I was prepared because I knew that what had happened to me previously was happening again. But the guy didn't get back to me until after all of this transpired and I was released from the hospital. So continuing on, it's around 10 a.m. I'm not sure the exact time as I have left my phones in the RV. I open my back door and my cat darts to Mrs. Young's house again. I mean, he bolted. And I believe my neighbor Brenda also saw him. So I run after him and he is on the railing of her deck, Mrs. Young's house, watching me. I start talking to him in another language and he's responding. The neighbor girl, the granddaughter that I'd met the previous day, comes running down the yard because she sees me and my cat and she hears how I'm talking to him and it scares her a bit. So I go back and forth between talking to her normally and talking to him in the other language. He is doing what I'm telling him to, and she squeals as he is coming up to her quickly, so I command him to slow and show her he is okay. So we're talking, and I asked her if her head hums, and she said yes. I said wrapping her head would help. So her grandfather George is on the porch, and I asked if I can give her a hat that I made earlier that morning that I thought would help. He says yes. So I run and get the hat. I give it to the girl, and I asked if it's okay to talk with her and play, and George said yes. I was telling a story of how we are all connected, and I was talking mostly with the granddaughter about how she is amazingly gifted, and then I was pointing out the neighbor's yard and saying how cool all the stone animal statues were, and how it reminded me of the movie Return to Oz. And how they had to find the emeralds in that cave and say Oz, and it would bring the statue back to life. I placed my hand on the wolf statue's head and said Oz, and was just telling the story. My cat then takes off and runs up to Cherry Avenue and goes under a Chevy SUV that felt hot to the touch. My cat was under the car, and the girl is now behind me saying, my grandma called the cops on you. Are you going to be okay? I said, it's okay, honey, I will be fine. Then a big truck is coming down the road, and I stepped in the middle of the street and put my hand up for the truck to stop. They slow but do not stop, so I yelled, "Stop!" I did not want my cat getting hit. My cat then takes off alongside the house, almost like he is corralling something. Next thing, I'm running after him. Then I dive in the air and fall to the ground, and I'm yelling for my husband, then my mom, dad, and sister. My cat is still running, so I run again, and then the little girl asks again if I'm okay. I say yes. It's a lot to explain, but I think in '99, when I took acid on the Powder Puff football night my senior year, I saw demons come out of the water, and it snowed in May, and I couldn't really explain much more, but we're all going to be okay. The little girl again tells me her grandmother called the cops. I said, "It's okay, honey. I will need a little help sleeping anyways. I'll be okay." She was really worried about me. I told her there was going to be an escape room and she would be in charge. I told her not to worry. I had reached out my hand and touched her arm and then apologized for touching her arm. She said it was okay. I looked at the old man, George, and I saw the lumps all over his face. He said he had them since he was a kid. His dad had them too. I asked him if I could place my hands on his face for healing, and he said yes. I briefly placed my hands on his face, then removed them, and then was moving the energy around his face with my hands, all with his permission. My cat was back perched on the railing at Mrs. Young's house, but he was looking down at my house. I noticed a man at my back door. I yelled down and told the other neighbors I had to go. As I approached, I realized it was my other neighbor, Mark, knocking on my door. I said, "Hey, Mark, what's up?" He said, "Deanna, get your cat. They called the cops on you." I said, "I know. It's okay." We talk a little bit, and then his wife, Brenda, comes out into the alley, and she says, "Get your cat, Deanna. Get to the house. The cops are here." She keeps glancing up towards Cherry Avenue, and she is noticeably nervous. She asks if I took my medicine, and I say, "Brenda, my only medicine is weed, and I smoke that every night, or I eat edibles." I said, "I promise, I'm okay. I do need to get that Visceral to help me sleep, and I'm going to let them take me to the hospital for the medication." She says, "If you're sure you're okay," I say I am, and she turns and walks back into her house. Now, I was talking loudly for this conversation because we were about 40 to 50 feet from each other. If someone were watching from the upper street, but from the Applebee's yard, it would appear like I was chanting or praying, not having a conversation with a neighbor that was out of view. So I went to my porch with my cat and put him back inside. I notice a police officer walking to my yard. I wave up to him, and as he walks down, I say, "I know you." He doesn't recognize me. So I continue on. I told him I recognized him from his tattoo, specifically the 9/11 tattoo. Then I was telling him some events from last year and how I would like some help sleeping, and it's really weird the things I go through in May. I told him I needed a translator or to get my phone so it could translate the things that I was saying. I said about how I had tried to reach out to my friend that was in the FBI because I do believe that I'm seeing events that may happen, and I need someone I can trust. I asked him to come into my house so I could get my phone. He says he's not coming into my house. So I say, "Shit, I think someone broke into my house. It's destroyed," but I can't lie. So then I said, "Just kidding, I did it." But I'm begging for my Pixel phone or a translator to see I'm not crazy. And he is all like, "You agreed to get in the ambulance." And I was like, "Yes, but there are certain things that have to happen for me to come with you guys." I said a lot of the things that are going to be happening where a lot of people are going to appear crazy or having big angry emotions and things that are hard to explain. I pointed out my cameras to the officer and he asked why I covered them. I said because I'm not afraid and they're unnecessary. That if we stopped treating people like caged animals, the world would improve. I told him about our company and the things we wanted to do and the heart symbol that I had put everywhere. My husband had come out at some point and he looked really worried, and I asked him to find my phone. He went to looking and came out with my Xfinity phone, and I said, "Get that away from me. It messes with my head." He hands it to me anyway, and I tell them to break it. The officer says, "I'm not breaking your phone," so I walk away from them and throw the phone down. I then pick it up and go to the edge of the concrete and hit the face off of the edge. I said, "I'm sorry, that phone hums funny and I can't handle it. Plus, it's owned by Blackstone. #rock. I asked for my husband to find my Pixel, and I felt everyone shift, and I said to Jordan to just sit down on the deck. I told the officer, I also want you to be aware that there is a weapon in our home, but it will never be used to hurt anyone. I said, I forgot when he showed up. I should have made that known. I said, we will all stay out here so you know you are safe. So then they ask if I'm ready to go, and I say, sure, let's do this. I thought I was going to sit in the jump seat like I did last year. They asked me to get on the gurney, and I tell them I can't, please don't make me. We were joking, and I finally get on, but as they start to push me on, I panic. Partially because of my daughter's accident and my experience with her on the ambulance. Like, I have extreme trauma on ambulances, and they just didn't care. So I unbuckle myself and ask to step off and get a drink of water. They are pushing me down and not listening, and my heart rate shot up to 140. I have a Cora ring that measures me at all times. And I felt like I was going to pass out. I'm begging them to let me take a minute to get some air. I stood up and said the energy was really heavy on the ambulance and I could clear it, but not like that, and continued to beg for water and to step off to catch my breath. I pulled out my phone and said, I'm going on TikTok live, and they took their hands off of me. I asked the officer to handcuff me and let me sit on the edge. He tells me no. I said, last year at Washington Hospital, you failed me and I reported you. I know it was you, and I touched his 9/11 tattoo. He said he quit working there and it was awful. I said the things that I was subjected to was awful, and I told him the story how I ran and why. I told him I am still missing memories from then, but they are coming back. I'm continuing on with my plea, and then the air in the ambulance changes and I can finally breathe. The girl EMT has a shot in her hand and says she needs to give it to me. I said I only agree to take what I'm currently prescribed and nothing more. I say it's either visceral or marijuana, nothing else. She says she just came from my house and that's exactly what she has. My medicine, but in liquid form. So I agree to take it, and I told them I will be able to help others, but they have to make sure I am hydrated and have fruit to eat. I don't remember a ton after that. I think I remember them going to give me a ketamine shot, to which I said, do I really have to go back there again? And they said yes. The ketamine was a really weird, almost exact same experience that I had the previous year, but that's a story for another time. Thanks for listening. In closing of this piece of the story, I want to say that there are no bad children. I think that even my neighbor and the cop are good. They just allowed their afflictions to show up on May 6th and give false report. They need to fix it.